The desert stretched out like a golden sea of silence, broken only by the gentle hum of sophisticated equipment inside the remote research station. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her noise-canceling headphones, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that transformed raw electromagnetic data into intricate visual patterns. Outside, the Atacama Desert's dry landscape shimmered under the intense Chilean sunlight, seemingly untouched by the extraordinary events about to unfold. For months, the international research team had been tracking anomalous signals that defied conventional understanding. These weren't random radio waves or background cosmic noise. Each intercepted transmission contained mathematical sequences so complex that they resembled living algorithms, patterns that seemed to breathe and shift between detection windows. The research station itself was a marvel of international cooperation. Funded by a consortium of global scientific institutions, it represented humanity's most advanced attempt to listen to the universe. Satellites positioned across multiple continents worked in perfect synchronization, their receivers calibrated to capture even the most ephemeral of signals. The team consisted of specialists from 23 different countries, each bringing unique perspectives and expertise. Dr. Rodriguez leaned closer to the primary display. Something was different today. The signal patterns had always been intricate, but now they displayed a level of complexity that suggested deliberate communication. Mathematical sequences began to interlock in ways that suggested more than random interference. Each fragment seemed to contain nested layers of information, like an intellectual Russian nesting doll waiting to be decoded. "Jorge," she called, to her primary research partner, "run the quantum correlation algorithm again. Something has changed." Jorge Martinez, a quantum computing specialist with a reputation for meticulous analysis, walked over. His dark eyes scanned the displays, noting the subtle shifts in the signal structure. "These aren't just random waves," he muttered more to himself than to Elena. "This looks like a conversation. No, more like an invitation." The research team had long hypothesized about potential extraterrestrial communication, but this was different from their previous speculative models. Traditional SETI approaches assumed that alien communication would follow human-like patterns, linear, predictable, easily decoded. These signals challenged everything they understood about interstellar communication. As Jorge initiated the advanced decryption protocols, the station's computer systems began to strain. Multiple quantum processors worked simultaneously, each attacking the signal from different mathematical angles. The complexity was extraordinary. Each attempted decryption revealed new layers of information, like peeling an infinite onion. Suddenly, the main display flickered. A series of geometric patterns emerged, interconnected in ways that suggested both mathematical precision and artistic complexity. The patterns were not random. They contained a logic that hinted at intelligence far beyond human comprehension. "International communication protocols," Jorge announced, his voice steady despite the excitement brewing in the room. "We need to notify the global scientific community immediately." Within hours, research stations around the world began reporting similar anomalies. The Atacama signal was not an isolated incident. Similar complex transmissions had been detected near radio telescopes in Australia, Puerto Rico, and Russia. Each location reported slightly different signal variations, yet they all shared a fundamental mathematical DNA. Government science advisors were quickly briefed. Military intelligence agencies began their standard threat assessment protocols. But the scientific community pushed for a collaborative approach. This wasn't a potential threat. It was potentially the most significant discovery in human history. As night fell over the Atacama Desert, the research station continued its vigil. The signal continued, its complexity growing with each passing hour. Something was trying to communicate, something that understood communication as a multidimensional living process, rather than a simple transmission of information. Dr. Rodriguez looked out the reinforced window at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, something was watching, waiting, inviting humanity to understand a form of communication that transcended everything they had ever known. The first stage of first contact had begun. The global response to the mysterious signal was unprecedented in human history. Within days of the initial discovery, world leaders convened an emergency summit that bypassed traditional diplomatic channels. The United Nations transformed its primary assembly hall into a continuous working space, with representatives from scientific, educational, technological, and governmental sectors working around the clock. Dr. Elena Rodriguez found herself at the center of this extraordinary mobilization. Her team's initial research had sparked a worldwide transformation that few could have anticipated. Educational systems across the globe began immediate restructuring, recognizing that humanity's response to this cosmic challenge required a complete reimagining of human potential. In Beijing, a network of universities launched an integrated curriculum designed to cultivate adaptive thinking. Students from elementary levels through advanced research programs began collaborative problem-solving exercises that broke down traditional academic boundaries. Mathematics merged with art, physics intertwined with philosophy, and computer science became intrinsically linked with human creativity. Silicon Valley's leading technology companies set aside competitive rivalries. Major tech firms established an open-source platform called the Global Intelligence Network, where researchers, programmers, and innovators could share insights in real time. Artificial intelligence systems were repurposed from commercial applications to assist in decoding the complex signal's underlying patterns. Meanwhile, military and defense organizations worldwide took a surprisingly collaborative approach. Instead of preparing for potential conflict, they redirected resources toward understanding the signal's nature. Advanced research facilities that once developed defensive technologies now became centers of collective human potential. In Mumbai, a group of young computer science students developed an innovative distributed computing platform. Their system allowed millions of personal devices to contribute processing power to the signal analysis project. It was a grassroots approach to what might be the most significant scientific challenge in human history. The education revolution was perhaps the most dramatic change. Schools redesigned curricula to emphasize critical thinking, collaborative problem-solving, and interdisciplinary approaches. A 15-year-old student in Cape Town could now directly contribute to the global research effort, her unique perspective potentially holding a key to understanding the mysterious transmission. Dr. Jorge Martinez led a team that began developing new computational models specifically designed to interpret the signal's complex mathematical language. Traditional decryption methods proved inadequate. The transmission seemed to operate on principles that challenged fundamental human understanding of communication and information transfer. Governments implemented unprecedented funding models. National research budgets were dramatically restructured, with massive investments in education, scientific research, and collaborative technologies. The signal had become a unifying global project, transcending political, economic, and cultural boundaries. Psychological research centers began studying human adaptability and collective intelligence. How could humanity prepare for a potential encounter that seemed to challenge everything known about communication and intelligence? Workshops and training programs emerged, teaching people to think beyond conventional limitations. In Tokyo, a revolutionary educational program paired students with artificial intelligence mentors, creating learning environments that could dynamically adapt to individual and collective learning patterns. The goal was to develop a generation capable of thinking in ways that could potentially match the intelligence behind the mysterious signal. The global communication infrastructure underwent a complete transformation. Satellite networks were reconfigured to create a more responsive, interconnected system. Internet protocols were redesigned to prioritize collaborative research and information sharing. Every technological system became a potential component of humanity's collective response. Religious and philosophical institutions joined the scientific effort, exploring the deeper implications of potential extraterrestrial communication. Theological debates transformed into discussions about human potential, consciousness, and our place in the universe. As weeks passed, it became clear that the signal was more than just a message. It was a catalyst. Humanity was being challenged to evolve, to demonstrate its collective potential in ways never before imagined. The entire planet was becoming a single, interconnected, problem-solving organism. Dr. Rodriguez looked out over the global research network, understanding that they were no longer just preparing for a potential encounter. They were redefining what it meant to be human. The preparation had begun. The massive construct emerged from the quantum fold with a silence that defied its incomprehensible size. Astronomical tracking systems first detected its approach near Jupiter's orbital path, triggering global alert protocols. It wasn't a traditional spacecraft, not in any sense humanity had ever imagined. The object moved with a fluidity that suggested it was simultaneously solid and not solid, a living mathematical equation more than a physical vessel. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the International Observation Center as the first high-resolution images began to stream in. The construct appeared to be breathing, if such a term could even apply to something so alien. Its surface shifted and rippled, geometric patterns flowing like liquid mathematics across its exterior. Traditional measurement systems failed. Sensors, designed to capture precise physical dimensions, seemed to break down when attempting to define its form. Global communication networks lit up with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound uncertainty. The construct made no aggressive moves. Instead, it began to emit a series of complex energy signatures that resonated with the original signal first detected in the Atacama Desert. It was communicating, or perhaps testing, something fundamental about human perception and understanding. Military leaders around the world found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Standard defensive protocols seemed laughably inadequate. How does one prepare for an encounter with an entity that seemingly exists beyond conventional physical limitations? The construct demonstrated no hostile intent, yet its mere presence challenged every fundamental understanding of space, time, and intelligence. In research centers across the planet, teams worked feverishly to interpret the new wave of transmissions. The construct's communication was multi-layered, mathematical sequences intertwined with what could only be described as emotional resonances. It wasn't just sending information. It was probing, feeling, testing the collective human consciousness. Jorge Martinez led a team that discovered the most remarkable aspect of the transmission. The signals weren't just complex, they were adaptive. Each human attempt to decode the message seemed to change the message itself. It was as if the construct was learning, responding, engaging in a real-time dialogue that transcended traditional communication models. Educational institutions worldwide suspended normal operations. Students from elementary schools to advanced research universities became part of a global effort to understand the transmission. Children in Lagos, programmers in Seoul, mathematicians in Buenos Aires, all found themselves contributing to humanity's most significant collective endeavor. The construct's approach seemed deliberate. It positioned itself at a precise point, between Earth and the Sun, creating a gravitational and electromagnetic configuration that defied existing scientific models. Astrophysicists noted that its position created subtle but measurable changes in solar radiation patterns, suggesting a level of technological sophistication beyond human comprehension. Communication attempts revealed something extraordinary. The construct wasn't just a vessel or a machine. It appeared to be a living intelligence with a purpose far more complex than simple exploration or conquest. Its transmissions carried undertones of assessment, of testing humanity's collective potential. Research teams discovered that the construct's communication method was fundamentally different from human understanding. It didn't just transmit information, it created interactive mathematical landscapes that human minds could potentially navigate. Each attempt to understand the transmission changed the transmission itself, creating a dynamic form of communication that was simultaneously a test and an invitation. Global leaders found themselves in uncharted diplomatic territory. How does one communicate with an entity that doesn't recognize traditional communication boundaries? The construct seemed to be evaluating humanity not through military might or technological advancement, but through something more fundamental: collective, intelligence, adaptability, and potential for growth. Religious leaders, philosophers, and scientists found themselves united in a shared sense of wonder. The construct challenged every existing paradigm about intelligence, communication, and humanity's place in the universe. It wasn't just a potential threat or an opportunity for technological exchange. It was a cosmic mirror reflecting humanity's deepest potential. As days passed, the construct remained in its precise position, continuing its complex transmission. Humanity watched, listened, and began to understand that first contact was no longer about meeting another species. It was about understanding a completely different conception of intelligence itself. The first stage of a truly extraordinary encounter had begun. The challenges began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Global research teams first noticed strange synchronicities appearing across seemingly unrelated fields of study. A breakthrough in quantum computing would mysteriously align with a new understanding in marine biology. Architectural designs would suddenly incorporate mathematical principles that mirrored complex ecological systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez recognized the pattern first. These weren't random coincidences, they were deliberate challenges issued by the construct. Each challenge was a multidimensional puzzle that required unprecedented levels of human collaboration and creative thinking. The first major challenge emerged in the field of environmental restoration. Research teams around the world received simultaneous transmissions that presented an incredibly complex ecological problem. The challenge required integrating knowledge from climatology, molecular biology, urban planning, and social psychology. No single discipline could solve the puzzle alone. In São Paulo, a group of young environmental scientists collaborated with indigenous knowledge keepers, bringing together traditional ecological wisdom and cutting-edge scientific research. Their approach revealed a holistic solution that traditional scientific methods would have overlooked. The construct seemed to be testing humanity's ability to break down disciplinary barriers. Educational systems worldwide transformed overnight. Schools and universities restructured their curricula to emphasize collaborative problem-solving. Students learned that the most innovative solutions emerged from combining diverse perspectives. A mathematics student in Mumbai might find critical insights by working with a poet in New York, or an engineer in Berlin might unlock a breakthrough by consulting with a traditional healer from Kenya. The second challenge targeted global communication systems. The construct introduced a series of complex communication protocols that required humans to develop entirely new ways of sharing information. Traditional language barriers began to dissolve as teams developed adaptive translation technologies that went beyond mere word-for-word translation. Jorge Martinez led a team that discovered the challenges were more than simple tests. They were evolutionary catalysts, designed to push human collective intelligence to its absolute limits. Each puzzle was simultaneously a problem to be solved and a mechanism for expanding human cognitive capabilities. Artists became crucial to solving these challenges. A visual artist in Tokyo discovered that her approach to color theory provided a breakthrough in understanding a complex mathematical model. Musicians found that their understanding of harmonic patterns could unlock linguistic challenges that computer algorithms had failed to solve. The construct's challenges targeted every aspect of human potential. One puzzle required developing a new form of energy production that was simultaneously sustainable, efficient, and harmonious with local ecosystems. Another challenge focused on creating educational models that could adapt in real time to individual and collective learning needs. Global competitive structures began to break down. Companies that once guarded their intellectual property now found themselves in open collaboration. A breakthrough in nanotechnology might come from combining insights from a small research team in Kenya with a theoretical framework developed by engineers in South Korea. Psychological research centers documented extraordinary changes in human cognitive capabilities. People began to think more holistically, seeing connections that were previously invisible. Empathy became a critical problem-solving tool, with emotional intelligence proving as important as traditional analytical skills. The challenges revealed something profound about human potential. The construct wasn't testing individual genius. It was evaluating humanity's capacity for collective intelligence. Each puzzle required a level of cooperation that transcended national, cultural, and disciplinary boundaries. Religious and philosophical, institutions found themselves at the forefront of this transformation. Traditional debates about human nature gave way to explorations of collective consciousness and our species' evolutionary potential. Spiritual leaders and scientists found themselves speaking a common language of human possibility. As weeks turned into months, it became clear that the construct's challenges were changing humanity at a fundamental level. People were developing new ways of thinking, of communicating, of understanding the world around them. The boundaries between disciplines, between cultures, between individual minds began to blur. Dr. Rodriguez understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Humanity was being invited to reimagine itself, not as a collection of separate individuals, but as a single, adaptive, incredibly complex intelligence. The collective transformation had begun. The transformative revelation came unexpectedly. A group of high school students from diverse backgrounds, representing 6 different countries and multiple cultural heritage, became the unexpected key to understanding the construct's deepest communication layers. Elena Rodriguez watched in awe as the student team worked. They weren't selected for individual brilliance, but for their unique ability to think collectively. Raul Martinez from Argentina brought intuitive mathematical insights. Zara Okeke from Nigeria contributed intricate pattern recognition skills. Kim Soo-jin from South Korea offered remarkable computational creativity. Amira Hassan from Egypt provided profound linguistic adaptability. Lucas Chen from Canada contributed holistic systems thinking. Maya Patel from India offered extraordinary emotional intelligence. Their collaborative approach defied every traditional academic and research model. Where professional teams had struggled, these students found breakthrough solutions by embracing their differences. They didn't compete. They completed each other's thinking processes, creating a living, breathing collective intelligence that seemed to resonate with the construct's communication method. The Global Research Network watched in real time as the student team began decoding transmission layers that had previously seemed impenetrable. Their approach wasn't linear or sequential. Instead, they created a dynamic, multidimensional problem-solving environment where each member's unique perspective became a critical component of understanding. Scientific institutions worldwide began to recognize a profound shift. The construct wasn't just testing human intelligence, it was revealing a fundamentally different approach to cognition. Traditional metrics of intelligence, IQ tests, academic achievements, technological capabilities, suddenly seemed obsolete. What mattered was the ability to connect, to understand, to transform collective potential. Jorge Martinez, leading the research team, documented extraordinary neurological changes. The students' collaborative process was creating new neural pathways that demonstrated unprecedented levels of interconnected thinking. Brain scan technologies revealed that their collective problem-solving was generating cognitive resonances that went beyond individual brain function. The breakthrough came during a seemingly impossible challenge. The construct presented a complex scenario that required simultaneous understanding of quantum mechanics, ecological systems, cultural anthropology, and emotional intelligence. Traditional academic approaches would have fragmented the problem. The student team saw it as a unified living system. Their solution was nothing short of revolutionary. They developed a communication model that wasn't just a method of exchanging information, it was a living, adaptive language that could transform itself based on collective understanding. The construct responded with what could only be described as enthusiasm, sending increasingly complex transmission layers that celebrated human potential. Educational systems around the world began immediate transformation. Schools were no longer about individual achievement, but about developing collective intelligence. Curricula focused on collaborative problem-solving, emotional intelligence, and the ability to see connections across seemingly unrelated disciplines. Global leaders watched in amazement. The student team had done what massive research institutions could not. They had begun to truly communicate with the construct. Their approach suggested that human intelligence was far more dynamic, far more interconnected than anyone had previously imagined. Cultural barriers began to dissolve. The student team's success demonstrated that human potential was not about individual genius, but about our capacity to understand, to empathize, to connect. Their collaborative process became a model for global problem-solving, transforming international relations, scientific research, and social interactions. The construct's transmissions began to change. What was once a series of complex challenges became a dialogue, a cosmic conversation that celebrated human potential. It became clear that the construct was not just testing humanity, but inviting us to understand a fundamentally different conception of intelligence and communication. Philosophical and scientific institutions struggled to comprehend the full implications. This was more than first contact. It was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be intelligent, to be human. The boundaries between individual minds began to blur, replaced by a more holistic understanding of collective consciousness. Global networks celebrated the breakthrough. Dr. Rodriguez understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. Humanity was not just responding to a cosmic challenge. We were being invited to evolve, to transform, to become something entirely new. The students continued their work, unaware that they were rewriting the fundamental understanding of human potential. Their collaborative intelligence was a beacon, a promise of what humanity could become. A new chapter of human evolution had begun. The quantum leap arrived with a complexity that defied human comprehension. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of humanity's most extraordinary scientific moment, watching as decades of research culminated in a breakthrough that would redefine the boundaries of human understanding. The research team had been preparing for this moment, though no one could have truly anticipated its nature. The construct's final challenge was not a test of technological prowess or individual intelligence, but a profound invitation to understand the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. Jorge Martinez monitored the primary interface, his hands moving across holographic displays that seemed to breathe with living information. The construct had begun to reveal layers of communication that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions of perception. It wasn't transmitting information, it was creating a living bridge between human consciousness and something far more complex. Global research centers reported simultaneous breakthroughs. In Beijing, a team of neurologists discovered that the construct's transmissions were activating dormant neural pathways. In Cape Town, quantum physicists observed impossible quantum entanglements that suggested consciousness could exist beyond traditional spatial and temporal limitations. The breakthrough came from an unexpected convergence of disciplines. Theoretical physicists worked alongside neuroscientists. Artists collaborated with mathematicians, and spiritual leaders engaged in dialogue with computational experts. The boundaries between scientific disciplines dissolved, revealing a more holistic approach to understanding reality. What emerged was a startling revelation. Human consciousness was not a fixed state, but a dynamic, adaptive system capable of extraordinary transformation. The construct had been guiding humanity toward a fundamental reimagining of intelligence, not as something contained within individual minds, but as a collective, interconnected phenomenon. Research teams documented extraordinary changes in human cognitive capabilities. People began experiencing moments of profound interconnectedness, spontaneous insights that transcended individual knowledge. A musician in Rio de Janeiro might suddenly understand complex quantum mechanics. A mathematician in Tokyo could comprehend intricate ecological systems with unprecedented clarity. The construct's communication revealed something profound about the nature of perception. It wasn't presenting information to be understood, but creating an interactive landscape of collective consciousness. Each transmission was simultaneously a challenge, an invitation, and a transformation. Global communication networks began to change. Traditional language barriers dissolved as people developed new ways of understanding and connecting. Emotional intelligence became as critical as analytical thinking. Empathy emerged as a powerful cognitive tool, allowing people to understand complex systems through intuitive connection. Educational institutions worldwide underwent a radical transformation. Schools were no longer about individual achievement, but about developing collective intelligence. Students learned to solve problems by embracing diverse perspectives, by understanding the interconnected nature of knowledge. The quantum leap challenged every existing understanding of human potential. Religious traditions found themselves in dialogue with scientific discoveries, recognizing a more profound understanding of consciousness that transcended traditional boundaries. Philosophical debates gave way to collective exploration of human capabilities. Military and political institutions found their traditional power structures becoming obsolete. Leadership was no longer about control, but about facilitating collective understanding. Global challenges required collaborative approaches that celebrated human diversity and interconnectedness. Dr. Rodriguez understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. The construct was not an external entity testing humanity, but a catalyst for human evolution. It had created a process of collective transformation that went beyond traditional understanding of communication, intelligence, or scientific discovery. The research team discovered that the construct's transmissions were actually creating new neural networks, not just in individual brains, but in the collective human consciousness. Each challenge, each moment of breakthrough was expanding human potential in ways that defied previous scientific understanding. As the final layers of the construct's communication began to unfold, humanity found itself on the brink of a profound transformation. This was more than first contact with an alien intelligence. This was an invitation to become something entirely new, a collective consciousness capable of understanding reality in ways previously unimaginable. Jorge Martinez looked at Dr. Rodriguez, a smile of wonder spreading across his face. They were no longer just researchers. They were witnesses to the most extraordinary moment in human history. The quantum leap had begun. The negotiation process defied every existing model of diplomatic interaction. Where traditional negotiations relied on power dynamics and competing interests, humanity's dialogue with the construct became a living, breathing process of mutual understanding and collective transformation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the international delegation, a group that represented the most diverse collection of human perspectives ever assembled. Scientists sat alongside indigenous wisdom keepers. Teenage prodigies collaborated with seasoned diplomats. Artists worked in tandem with quantum physicists, creating a communication approach that was part science, part art, and part collective intuition. The construct's communication had evolved into something far beyond traditional language. It presented scenarios, challenges, and potential futures that required holistic understanding. Each transmission was a multidimensional puzzle that demanded collective problem-solving, empathy, and a radical reimagining of human potential. Jorge Martinez documented the extraordinary negotiation process. The construct wasn't interested in territorial claims or technological exchanges. Instead, it sought to understand humanity's capacity for growth, adaptation, and collective consciousness. Every proposed solution was met with deeper, more complex scenarios that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. Global leaders watched in awe as the delegation developed new approaches to communication. Traditional diplomatic language gave way to a more dynamic, adaptive form of dialogue. Negotiations became a collaborative process of mutual exploration, where the line between human and construct communication began to blur. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. A young environmental activist from the Amazon rainforest presented a vision of planetary stewardship that resonated deeply with the construct's underlying communication patterns. Her approach, rooted in indigenous understanding of ecological interconnectedness, provided insights that global scientific institutions had overlooked. Representatives from previously marginalized communities became critical to the negotiation process. A group of ocean conservation experts from small island nations revealed understanding of planetary systems that transcended traditional scientific models. Their holistic approach to ecological preservation became a key component of the dialogue. The construct's proposals challenged every existing human paradigm. It wasn't offering technological solutions or territorial agreements. Instead, it presented pathways for collective human evolution, ways of understanding consciousness, ecological systems, and cosmic interconnectedness that went far beyond current human capabilities. Global communication networks transformed. Traditional barriers of language, culture, and disciplinary expertise dissolved. The negotiation process became a live, global dialogue where anyone could contribute insights. A student in Kenya might provide a critical perspective that would reshape the entire diplomatic approach. Educational institutions worldwide adapted in real time. Schools and universities became centers of collective problem-solving, teaching students to approach challenges with empathy, creativity, and a holistic understanding of complex systems. The negotiation model became a new approach to human learning and development. Religious and philosophical traditions found themselves in unprecedented dialogue. Scientific discoveries merged with spiritual insights, revealing a more profound understanding of consciousness and human potential. The construct's communication challenged existing belief systems while offering pathways for deeper understanding. Dr. Rodriguez recognized the true nature of the negotiation. This wasn't a traditional first contact scenario. The construct was offering humanity an invitation, a chance to reimagine ourselves as a truly collective, adaptive intelligence capable of understanding the universe in fundamentally new ways. The delegation developed a revolutionary framework. Rather than a traditional treaty, they created a living document of human potential, a collaborative vision that could adapt and grow with collective human understanding. It wasn't about establishing boundaries, but about creating pathways for continuous evolution. Global political structures began to transform. Traditional power dynamics gave way to more collaborative, adaptive governance models. Leadership became about facilitating collective intelligence rather than maintaining control. Nations began to see themselves as interconnected systems rather than competing entities. As the negotiation process continued, humanity discovered something profound. The construct wasn't an external entity to be understood or conquered. It was a catalyst, a mirror reflecting humanity's most extraordinary potential for growth, connection, and collective transformation. Jorge Martinez looked at the emerging framework, understanding that they were creating something far more significant than a diplomatic agreement. This was a blueprint for human evolution. The cosmic negotiation had begun. 5 years after the initial encounter, humanity stood transformed. The cosmic dialogue had reshaped every aspect of human civilization, creating a global society that defied previous understanding of potential, cooperation, and consciousness. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the International Collaborative Center, overlooking a world fundamentally different from the one she had known. The construct's presence had become a living catalyst, permanently altering humanity's trajectory. Cities now functioned as living, adaptive ecosystems. Educational systems had become dynamic networks of collective learning. Governance had transformed, from hierarchical structures to fluid collaborative decision-making processes. Jorge Martinez joined her, both of them witnessing the extraordinary transformation. The global communication network they had helped develop now connected minds across previously unimaginable distances. People could share experiences, knowledge, and emotional states with a depth of understanding that transcended traditional communication methods. The construct remained in its original position, no longer a mysterious visitor but a constant presence, AI, cosmic companion, that continued to challenge and inspire human potential. Its transmissions had become a form of collective meditation, a continuous invitation to explore the boundaries of consciousness and interconnectedness. Scientific breakthroughs emerged at an unprecedented rate. Ecological restoration projects transformed damaged environments into thriving, interconnected ecosystems. Medical research developed holistic approaches that treated human health as a complex, adaptive system. Energy technologies drew inspiration from natural systems, creating sustainable solutions that worked in harmony with planetary processes. Educational institutions had been completely reimagined. Learning was no longer about individual achievement, but about collective growth. Students from different cultures, backgrounds, and disciplines worked together on complex global challenges. A young researcher in Mumbai might collaborate in real time with indigenous knowledge keepers in the Amazon, creating solutions that blended traditional wisdom with cutting-edge scientific understanding. The global economy transformed. Competition gave way to collaborative innovation. Economic models prioritized collective well-being, environmental sustainability, and human potential. Companies became adaptive networks focused on solving global challenges rather than accumulating individual wealth. Technological development took unexpected paths. Instead of focusing on individual convenience, technologies were designed to enhance collective intelligence and ecological harmony. Communication systems became living networks that facilitated deeper understanding between different cultures, species, and ecosystems. Philosophical and spiritual traditions found themselves in unprecedented dialogue. Scientific discoveries merged with deeper insights about consciousness, revealing a more profound understanding of human potential. The boundaries between scientific research and spiritual exploration began to dissolve. Global governance models emerged that celebrated human diversity while recognizing our fundamental interconnectedness. Political boundaries became more fluid, with collaborative networks replacing traditional nation-state structures. Decision-making processes prioritized long-term collective well-being over short-term individual interests. Dr. Rodriguez reflected on the journey. The construct had not conquered humanity or provided technological shortcuts. Instead, it had offered something far more profound, a mirror that reflected humanity's most extraordinary potential for growth, connection, and collective transformation. The relationship with the construct remained dynamic and evolving. It was neither a superior intelligence nor a subservient partner, but a catalyst for continuous exploration. Each transmission continued to challenge human understanding, inviting ongoing discovery and growth. Environmental restoration became a global priority. Humans developed a deeper understanding of ecological interconnectedness, working to heal planetary systems with the same collaborative approach they had learned from the construct's communication. Damaged ecosystems began to recover, with human intervention focused on supporting natural regenerative processes. Space exploration took on new meaning. Rather than a quest for conquest or resource extraction, it became a collaborative journey of discovery and understanding. Each mission was a collective endeavor that celebrated human potential for curiosity, empathy, and interconnected thinking. Jorge Martinez approached a group of young researchers, watching as they worked on a complex project that merged quantum, physics, ecological restoration, and cultural understanding. The team represented a new model of human collaboration, diverse, adaptive, and profoundly interconnected. Dr. Rodriguez understood that this was more than a technological or scientific transformation. Humanity had discovered a new way of being, a collective consciousness that celebrated individual diversity while recognizing our fundamental interconnectedness. The cosmic dialogue continued, an ongoing invitation to explore the extraordinary potential of human consciousness. A new horizon had dawned,